But it's great to see everybody. Continue to please say hello in the chat box. And if you're seeing this on Instagram, head over to YouTube. But thank you for joining this Sunday edition of Meet the Miniaturist. It's actually a special MiniVersity version of Meet the Miniaturist. And I'm going to introduce my guest in a little bit. But before I do that, I do want to let you guys know what's been going on and things that you might have missed. So please head over to YouTube to see most recent Meet the Miniaturists. I actually have had a couple. Gosia Suchadalska. She does beautiful florals in miniature. And I had her on to talk about her beautiful work. So check that out. I also had Judith Cassine. Okay. But Judith Cassine, she's got a beautiful dollhouse that she's been working on, and she's almost finished, actually. She's been working on it's kind of like a miniature mansion, if you will. And so I got to interview her, talk about her process, think about, how she's put this piece together. It's quite extraordinary. Judith Cassine from the Netherlands. So look for that. I have a special Thursday edition coming up on evening, and I haven't announced it yet. But look for that. So check out the MiniVersities, check out the Meet the Miniaturist. Do like and subscribe to my channel, of course. And then finally, and most importantly, sign up for my newsletter. I'm just going to take a second to say hello to Instagram. Head over to my YouTube channel, guys, so you can see this very special Meet the Miniaturist MiniVersity session. And do continue to say hello in the chat box as I introduce my very special guest, who is Jeff Swim.
Hi.
From Doodler's Woodworker. Doodler.com. Hi, Jeff. Great to see you.
Being here.
Thank you for joining today. I can't wait to introduce you and your work to our audience. But I just want to talk a little bit about how I found you. And I found you at a recent at the Chicago Tom Bishop show.
Right.
And you had this amazing folding table. And so that is what really got me. So I was completely blown away by some of this work. And I was like, I got to talk to this guy. I got to talk. And yeah.
You came to our table. I remember you at the table. I didn't know who you were then, though I was familiar with D. Thomas Miniatures. I've looked at it many times over the years and appreciate the quality of the work on there. I had no clue who you were, but I'm glad you came.
Well, I'm glad I found you. And then I went to your Instagram account and I saw how generous you were with some of the things and the processes that you sort of talk about and share. And I said, I got to get you on for this MiniVersity so others can be inspired by the work you do. So I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you guys at home for joining. We're gonna do a deep dive into how you got started, but then you're gonna take us through the process, specifically about this amazing folding table that you have crafted. And we're going to go through some of those steps, which I think is going to be great for people to see.
Okay.
And then finally, we're going to get a really special walkthrough of your workshop, which is just blows me away. Not only because it's so clean, but because you have everything. You have everything. It's like, it's a maker's dream.
I forgot what I have.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how this all began for you, and just a little bit about your background and what are the skills that sort of got you here? So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I've always been a maker. I mean, when I was a kid, probably as young as 8 or 10 years old, I started making model cars, balsa airplanes, Radio Shack electronic kits, and I practiced with every possible craft I could find. And then in 7th grade, we had a woodshop class. I don't think many 7th grades have woodshop classes anymore.
I remember those.
Yeah. And I discovered I had a real talent for engineering and drafting, and I just fell in love with woodworking. I mean, we worked on lathes in that class, 7th graders. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then through the years, I kept fiddling with woodworking when I could, but I didn't really have much opportunity. But then in the mid-90s, my young daughter, hi Jessica, wanted a dollhouse. So we went to Michael's, we bought a kit and put it together. Then we started furnishing it. At that time, I knew nothing about the wider world of miniatures, so all we could find was with Michael's and other craft places, and I was so disappointed I decided to start making all the miniatures for the house.
Yeah.
And with only a hand tools, a Microlux table saw, and wood that I bought through Micromark, I
Yeah.
created a whole bunch of pieces. I populated the house. And then the last piece I made back in 96 was this.
Ah.
Now, back then, I made these things by one piece at a time. I looked at a picture of it, and I just made them one piece at a time.
Wow, so that was the beginning. And you weren't planning at that time to sort of introduce your work to a larger audience. Is that right?
Well, I didn't get back into miniatures until 6 years ago.
Which is
Because when in the early 2000s, Betsy and I bought this house, and I started building my wood shop.
yeah.
For a while, I went from one thing to another, and for a few years I got into making cribbage boards. And that's when I got into exotic woods, because I was making really high-end boards from exotic woods.
Yeah.
I did okay for a while, but there was not that big a market for it, and I got tired of drilling thousands of holes.
Yeah. I don't want to forget to bring up that, one of the biggest components of what you do, your woodworking is fabulous, but there's an extra level on this in the sense that you know your exotic woods. And so pieces that you do, and I want to see if I could share some of this now. So it's not only you know your exotic woods, but each piece that you make, you kind of have a variation in all those different kinds of woods. So I don't want to forget that. So these are just some examples of some of the pieces that you've created. So talk a little bit about, you went from making just, not a simple desk. I don't want to underrate it, but talk a little bit about the evolution over the last few years to building this entire lineup of miniatures.
Okay. Well, when I first started, 6 years ago, I'm going to show you something here. 6 years ago, I decided to build a full-size cabinet for my bedroom. And so I thought, oh, that's a good idea, build a scale mock-up. And this is the piece. I'm going to show it. I built this 6 years ago. And although I never finished making the full-size piece that got me inspired to build miniatures again, my very next piece, believe it or not, was this, which is based on a piece my in-laws own. It's a little secretary piece. So when I first started making that piece and subsequent ones for the first year or two, I made it as I went along. Looked at either plans or pictures, and I made each piece one at a time. And
Yeah.
I really couldn't reproduce them. I mean, if I make it again, it would be totally different. So I started concentrating on the process. I was learning to use CAD program, computer assisted design at the time.
Yeah.
And I got quite good at that. And now when I make a piece, I have a complete process so I can reproduce it. And the variety of exotic woods comes from that too. Because when I started making it so I could reproduce the pieces I make, I started thinking, oh, I want to make this in this wood or that wood.
Yeah.
A lot of this wood behind me is stuff I use.
There's so many different layers here of skills. It just blows my mind. And we're going to get into that. So talk a little bit about, so you have this expandable table that has hit your Instagram account. And by the way, if you're not following Jeff, I'm going to pop in his contact, his social media channels in the comments. So please go ahead and copy those so you could see the evolution of this expandable table. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of that, and then we're going to go through all of those individual steps that you have kind of mastered at this point. Okay. But talk about the inspiration first. Okay. Where did these ideas come from?
Yeah. I usually find my inspiration from either pieces we have in the house and I'm running out of pieces in the house, but First Dibs is actually the first place I go to. I've been wanting to make an expanding table for a long time. And so I found several things on First Dibs that were nice. I use First Dibs because they have wonderful photos. It's easy to figure out how things are made.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once I find a piece, this particular one is kind of a composite of several other pieces I found. I go into my CAD program, which I use Autodesk Fusion.
Right. Wait, so
Design.
okay, so inspired by things you see not only in your home, but things you see online, auction houses, things like that.
Yes.
So and
Mhm.
and you see something, what is like, okay, I want to make that. What is it? I mean, yeah, there's good, clear drawings, but what else are you
Why do I
drawn to?
choose that point?
What's
Why,
that?
why do I choose a particular style or a
Well,
piece?
why did you choose the expandable desk? Like what table? What was it that drew you there?
The mechanics. I
Thank
just
you.
love
That's
clever-
what I wanted to hear. That's
I
exactly.
love making pieces that have a mechanical cleverness to them.
Yeah, which is
I
really
like
what
table trays.
which is what drew me to your tables. I
Yeah.
was like, these are fabulous. And then I saw your expanding table because personally, for me, it's all about things that move and jigger and the mechanics. So okay, so it was the mechanics of that expandable table. So let's talk about the various steps, if you will. What is the very first step once you've identified that piece that you're gonna try to make? And
Build it
yeah.
in CAD.
it's
Build
the
it.
CAD. So for people who might not know what CAD is, explain that.
It's computer assisted design, which is basically a program. It's a drafting program, a three-dimensional drafting program. So I craft, yeah, there you go. That's the program I use, and that's the table as I designed it in CAD. And every single piece has to be sized and all the parameters for it. And then from that, I make a drafting plans to figure out how to cut all the parts.
So that's the very first step. Do you
Yeah.
know at that point if this is something you're actually going to pursue, or is this a testing? Is this sort of the
Yeah.
testing ground?
If I'm doing it in CAD, I know I'm going to do it.
You know you're going to do
that decision. Yeah.
right.
So once I finish the CAD design, then I create parts lists, and from there I decide what parts to cut by hand and what parts to do with my CNC machine.
Right. Let's talk about that CNC machine. So
It's called a CAM program, computer assisted manufacturing. I took the parts design, those parts you see on the screen, from the CAD program, and I converted them to a format that I can load into this program, and then over on the right side are all the parameters for cutting. I select what size bit I'm going to use, how fast I want it to go, whether it has tabs on the workpiece to make sure they don't fall off when it's being cut, and all the parameters you need to cut. Okay.
So what piece are we actually, we're looking at something from the table, from the actual table?
These are rails that connect to the legs to the central post on the table. And really,
So it is.
okay. Go back one step further, one step back.
Oh, there?
Nope, go back to the other computer screen.
That one.
Yeah, that. Now this is the program that controls the CNC, and it's loaded the file that I saved with the previous program. This program tells the CNC how to work. So, okay.
Okay. All right, I'm going to scroll forward.
Okay.
So this is the actual machine.
Yeah, this is a mechanism that I use to make sure that the tip of the bit touches the top of the workpiece properly. So it's a zero height when it's going to go start cutting.
Okay. Up there, and that's it, starting to cut.
Yep. And it cuts through them.
And so that piece of wood that we're looking at right now under the bit, that's the actual piece that'll become part of the part of
Yes.
the
Yes. Yeah, that's the piece that I resawed from raw wood.
Right. And just out of curiosity, what's the thickness of that?
That piece was probably 0.08, I think.
Okay. It looks pretty thick. Am I crazy?
No, it's 0.08.
I don't know what 0.08 is. I don't know.
Just a little over a 16th of an inch.
Okay. All right, good. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. And so this is sort of the tail end. Are those ready to be like punched out?
I use a micro saw to saw the sprues out and then sand them.
And then they're ready to be the next step, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
Sanding and assembling.
Okay, so let's talk about. Let's see if this works. This is you're looking at right now. This is
when I size the pieces of wood. I have 5 pieces of wood there that I'm going to use for this project. This is parts for the expanding table in 5 different kinds of woods, and I rough cut the wood on my table saw and bandsaw, and then I go to the drum sander to basically shave them down to the exact thickness I want.
Right. That's quite a beautiful machine. So I know this is not the right detail, but the pipe is taking all the dust up.
Yeah, dust collection system. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I could see your Proxon off to the side there.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, I use that a lot.
Yeah. Do you have other saws, or is that your main tabletop saw?
I also still have the Microlix saw that I bought in the early 90s. I still use it in the house occasionally. Okay. I have a full-size table saw too. We'll see that
And do you use the full-size table saw to make miniatures? I mean,
I use it as my first step in resawing.
Got it.
Well, that was a video on belt sanding. The other one was on resawing wood, which included the table saw and the bandsaw.
Do we show this one? This is wood cutting, right. No?
Yeah, what I do there is in the first frame was to save wear and tear on the bandsaw. I use a very thin curved blade on the table saw, and I saw halfway through on both sides, so that only has a half inch. The bandsaw only has a half inch to have to saw through when I put it through. And then, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Final step is I go to the drum sander to get rid of the cut marks from the previous one. Then I do the whole thing again.
Okay, so this is the drum sanding part.
Yep. Yes.
Oh, we saw this one already. I'm sorry.
That's the one.
Right. That's with that great tube. All right. Why don't we see if there are any questions before we move on? Because I want to show the finished piece, of course.
My daughter just logged on.
I see that. Let's see. I thought there was a question. There was a question for greetings from Columbus. Miss Swim, this is a question from Gordon McFarland. Wants to know, how do you get thin boards, bond saw, and then drum sanding?
Well, as I described, I basically resaw them on the bandsaw. I do use the table saw to help take some of the stress off the bandsaw by partially sawing them first.
Yeah.
Once I run them through the bandsaw to get the rough thickness, I usually saw the thickness to about 32nd of an inch thicker than I need, and then I get down to the perfect thickness on the thickness sander, the drum sander.
Right. We're gonna talk about the wood. Why don't we talk about the wood? What is another question about the wood? What is your favorite exotic wood?
Amboina burl.
What's that?
Amboina burl.
Oh my, that's a load. Okay, talk a little bit about that.
It's just the most beautiful burl I think there is. That's all.
So it's a burl wood.
Yes.
And so I don't tell us a little bit about burl wood. From little I know, I'm going to give it to you.
Burl wood is the wood that has incredibly little tiny eyes and swirls throughout it.
Got a lot of depth.
I think it usually results when a tree gets damaged or gets a cancerous growth on it, and it's pretty rare. It's imperfect. No, right. If you ever see a tree with a huge bulge on one side, that's usually a burl.
Oh wow! So it's the imperfection that makes it so beautiful.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow. Well, that's great. Okay.
Outside of that, probably most of the rosewoods are my favorites.
Rosewood.
Ebony, of course. Just love working with ebony.
And where do you get the woods? Dana would like to know.
Okay, most of my woods are bought from a company in Oregon called Cook Woods.
Oh, wow.
Cookwoods.com if you want to look it up.
Okay.
I'm
I'm gonna
get
pop
almost
that
all
in.
of mine from them.
And so how do you buy it in small pieces? I mean,
Mail order. Yeah, they have sales all the time, and yeah. Oh, generally, I most of the time I purchase pieces that are 2 by 2 by 12 or 3 by 3 by 12. That's what I usually
wow,
look for
12
because
inches.
right, 12 inches. That's the standard size I use for in my cutting plans.
Right, right. Wow. Um, have you ever made anything from olive wood? Somebody
Yes.
wants to know.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I would too. Beautiful figurine.
Joey would love to see a set of tiny router bits. If you have them and how you make them, how do you make your trim at like crown mold? Do you do crown molding?
I do all my own molding, yes. Oh, I do. Yeah, I do the molding on the CNC machine.
Uh-huh. Hold on, I'm gonna.
That's a 1/32 of an inch bit.
Wow.
That does most of the cutting of the shapes. And then I use, for carving stuff, I use this 1/2 millimeter. Can't see it. It's 1/2
Yeah, it's hard to
millimeter
see.
all nose bit.
Well, let's take a look at the finished. Let's take a look at this finished table. And again, going back to the mechanics, why don't you tell us about this table now that it's finished?
Okay.
What kind of wood is this?
Oh, that's a Claro walnut burl. And the sliders are made with
Sliders.
yeah,
Those are the what's another word for
slider
sliders?
wood.
Oh, you're talking this. There's more than one type of wood.
Yeah, the main part of the wood, the piece, is the Claro walnut burl, and then the other is a tighter grain, stronger wood for the sliders.
That's just incredible. I'm just look at all of the detail, the underside on the underside of that. That's just incredible.
I do all that detail with my mini mill.
Mini mill.
I have a mini mill which I do most of the drilling and work like that.
It's just incredible. It really is. I mean, it's one thing to have a great miniature, but then to have it work. So how long does it take you from beginning to end, if you will? Like, how long is this process in general?
It could be as little as a week or two on a simple piece, but sometimes sometimes pieces take several months. I started working on this about 6 weeks ago in the design stage, and then I've been working. Let's see, 3 to 4 weeks ago, I started actually cutting, doing the prototype and cutting the wood for the next 5 pieces that I'm doing in that piece.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of sanding hundreds of pieces of wood right now because I'm especially making an effort with this one to do everything at once. Because what I would do in the past was cut all the parts. I do a prototype, then go back to the design stage and make any adjustments if I find any issues with the prototype. And then I'll go and select all the woods I want. Sometimes it'll just be a couple different woods depending on the piece. Sometimes, one time I did a bread box that I did in 68 different woods. That took me 2 months to make. I'll select my woods and then cut all the wood for it. In the past, I would build them all one at a time. And by the time I got to the last one, I'd be pretty good at making that particular piece. But this time I'm going to make them all at the same time so I can cut down on setup time. Because with every little process in the build takes time to set up the mill, to set up jigs that I make for building and so on. This time I'm going to make it like a manufacturing.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell you have this down because when you visit your table, you have it all laid out beautifully, all the different woods you get to choose from. It's very detailed. It's very organized, which we're going to get to a walkthrough of your shop in a bit because that's super organized. But I want to take a few more questions because there's a lot of questions, which is fantastic. Where do you buy your saw blades?
Saw blades. I can't remember the name of the company. The company online.
Okay.
I'll go in and put that link in where I get them from.
Okay.
You mean bandsaw blades?
Table saw blades, I think.
Oh,
Michael
Amazon.
Do you make your own hardware and hinges?
No.
No.
Well, one time I did, but
It's just, yeah, it's
haven't
not what you do. Yeah. But
actually, I have. Okay, let me go into that. I did make some hinges using photo etching techniques.
Okay.
Photo etching a few years ago, and I made some hinges that I use exclusively for the Tansu sep chests that I've made a couple times. And I have made some hinges for the ladders that you can see on my website. I did those by milling them on my CNC machine on a sheet rack.
Okay. I want to talk about the jig you brought up. Talk a little bit about what a jig is and how it helps you make your miniatures.
A jig is basically a setup, either physical or otherwise, to help you put pieces together, align them. Let's see, let me think. I showed you one jig in Instagram, how I align the legs on the table.
So yeah. And do you always create a jig? I mean, is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A good example is that folding chair, which has become very popular on my Etsy. I have a small little jig that I cut on the CNC, and basically it has indentations that I take the little pieces and I put them in to align them before I glue them up and put nails through.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you use veneers?
Once in a while, but no, not often.
Uh-huh.
I actually make my own veneer if I need it.
Make your own. Is that a matter of literally just slicing? I'm using the wrong words. Getting it as thin as possible.
Yeah. Veneers are generally about a 32nd of an inch thick. And that's not difficult.
Can they always be bent? Is that what? I mean, what defines a veneer versus a piece of strip wood?
I think a veneer is any coating of one wood over another wood. I've seen veneers as thick as a 1/4 inch, but I don't think they'd call it a veneer, but you're still covering up one wood with another. So
right. Let's say, is there a way to use your Dremel to make baseboards and trim? There's a lot of questions about trim.
I make baseboards and trim with the CNC machine.
With the CNC machine. And what brand of CNC machine do you use?
It's an Avid, AVID.
AVID. I'm going to pop that in. AVID. And that's a CNC, right?
Right.
Awesome. I want to go back to the etching, the photo etching. Is that something you enjoy doing? Is that something you will do more of? Is that something No.
I'll do it more of if I can ever find a proper printer.
Say that again?
One of the most important things is to have a high quality negative. Because in photo etching, you take and you put a coating on the piece of metal, the piece of brass or copper or whatever. Then you take a negative that you create by printing onto a transparency on an inkjet printer. Then you have to expose that to UV light, and then there's more processing with chemicals, and then before you photo etch. But the biggest problem is getting that negative right. You have to have absolutely black transparency, and that's been the biggest impetus to me doing that more.
Right.
I'll get into it more one day, but it hasn't been important yet.
But it sounds like there's, you just have the bandwidth for all of these different steps when most people can barely do one of them. So kudos. So what's next? I know you're working on the expandable table. It's finished. You're in the process of making multiple pieces now at this point in different types of wood.
The prototype is done, and I'm making 5 more of them in various woods. And you can see that on the Instagram account.
So this goes back to, folks who follow you. You're very generous sharing your work, how you do your work, tips and tricks. So I would recommend folks go and check out Jeff's Instagram account to follow along. And so what's sort of next for you? Like, is there a bucket list item in your head, or
I have probably a dozen different projects in mind. My very next project is a French easel that I designed about a year ago, and I'm just starting the process. I'm going to make 30 of them in 3 different woods, 10 in 3 different woods.
Just describe that. So French artist easel.
French artist easel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I just posted a couple pictures of that on at Instagram just the last couple
Oh,
days.
you did? Okay, so
anybody's wondering about that, look at it on the Instagram account.
Are there any movable parts to that?
Yes.
Of course.
Beautiful movable part. You'll see. You'll love it.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. So what? Okay, so the French easel is next for you. That's awesome. What is your favorite part of this process? What part? I mean, they're all fantastic things to want to do. Is there one sort of standout favorite?
I think putting them together.
Putting it together.
What I've realized recently is when I was a kid, my favorite thing to do was putting models together, model kits. I mean, I just loved putting models together. And now I've engineered so I can make my own models to put together.
Right. Yeah.
So,
what is it about that part of the process? I mean, you're designing, you're cutting, you're sanding, you're finishing, you're designing, you're getting inspired, but then it's the actual putting the pieces together. What is it about that? Is it meditative?
It's very relaxing.
It's relaxing.
I listen to audiobooks while I do it.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I love getting to the end, the finished piece. I have to force myself to slow down at times.
Yeah.
So I do it right. Because sometimes I get a little anxious and I start to get a little hasty. But you gotta avoid that.
So we know we can follow you. We know where we can follow you on Instagram. We know you have an Etsy shop, but I put that in the comment section as well. What is the next? Where are we going to see you next?
Next, you'll see me at the Bishop Show again next year.
Next year in April, so we can see you work. And are you literally working now for that, or like where is your head at?
Yep, these expanding tables are going to be saved for that show.
Oh, okay.
So anybody who wants to buy one, you're going to have to come to the show.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty good. That's nice of you for your customers.
I'll have more news things that I'll post on my Etsy before that. But, I'm kind of going to go back and forth between projects that I'm going to save for the show and projects that'll sell on Etsy.
I didn't want to forget. We're going to do a nice walkthrough of your awesome garage space.
Okay. That's my metal lathe over there, workbench. On the left side is my sanding stations.
Oh, look at this. This is a dream. This is a dream workspace.
Okay. And coming up, that's a 3D printer that I built from scratch a few years ago.
It's a 3D printer?
I really don't use it though. The 3D printer, yeah. I built it about 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't used it in a couple of years. There's my router table and my bandsaw behind it.
Wow.
And over on the right side is my grinding, and there's my mini saw and thickness sander, drill press behind it.
I mean, these are for the most part, these are full-size machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Dust collection system, a planer. Oh, here.
Is that all the wood back there?
Yeah, we'll get to that. On the right is my pride and joy CNC machine.
Oh, wow. That is just incredible. And I see the stacks of wood, right? Those are the pieces that you buy?
Yeah, and go forward a little bit to get a better view of them. Getting there.
Oh, look at that.
I probably have somewhere between 80 and 100 different woods in my collection.
That's incredible. That is just incredible. I mean, that's playground. That's just playground. And to have it be part of your everyday, to be choosing woods and figuring out what looks best. I mean, that's just a builder's dream. That's just awesome. I mean, my dad was a cabinet maker by trade. So, I wasn't around exotic woods when I was growing up, just regular wood, plywood, birch, but just to see all of that behind you and, it's just extraordinary.
Thanks. That's one thing I've strived to separate myself from other miniature makers with synthetic woods.
Yeah, for sure. And we see that. I mean, I think there's just so many great things that you bring to the table. And so, yeah, is there anything else you want to share with folks that they might want to know as we wind up this awesome Miniversity?
Look at my notes real quick. I hate sanding.
So it's Jessica's your daughter, right?
Yes.
She's mentioning the garage looks way better since the fire. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. 3 years ago, had a small electrical fire in the garage, and that was probably because I had built a controller for my first CNC machine from scratch, and I think it had an electrical problem. Anyways, I had a small electrical fire, and it pretty much ruined everything to the extent that the garage had to be totally emptied out down to including the drywall.
Wow.
And
wow. Yeah.
I spent that entire summer 3 years ago, summer and fall, rebuilding the garage from scratch.
Wow. That's amazing.
It wasn't until October of that year that I could start making things again.
So, we're going to take one more question. But just as a comment, Mr. Swim, you are an inspiration. I agree. Caitlin Catalan just wants to know any tool suggestions for rudimentary beginners.
Oh, mini table saw.
First,
miniature table saw. Yeah, that's absolutely.
And brand, the Proxon, you recommend?
Yes. I mean, if you can't afford the Proxon, which is I think like between $400 and $500 now, the Microlux that you can get at Micromark is a decent machine. I think that's as low as 140 or so.
Yeah.
But that's a good machine. But go with the Proxon if you can afford it, because it's stability and you can angle the blade and do a lot more things with it.
Yeah.
Besides that, a Dremel tool.
Dremel.
And lots of hand tools,
right?
Blades and saws, everything you can get your hands on.
Fantastic. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your work and your workshop and your inspirations moving forward. Can't wait to see you in Chicago. And thank you guys at home for joining. I'm really thankful that you're here. Thank you, Jeff. We will see you soon. And thank you, everybody at home. Take care. Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yay. Awesome.